FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
You know, peer pressure is a thing that we think is sort of this evil in young teenagers' lives. Joe Allen is one of the best friendship researchers there is in the country, and he's done this long-term study of kids from when they were in 7th grade, and he's followed them now for 12 years. It's a very good, diverse sample. And of course, he's a clinical psychologist. He was worried about how much peer pressure they felt, and so he had 19 different constructs to measure peer pressure on them in 7th grade. And he followed them over time. What was interesting is the kids who felt more peer pressure in 7th grade, sure, in the short term, led to a little bit earlier sexual activity, a little more alcohol use, a little more drug use. But in the long term, now they're graduating from college and stuff, they're turning out better, way better. A little bit better GPAs, but what's interesting is they have much better relationship quality with their romantic partners, with their friends, and with their parents. So why would that be? That's sort of wild.
So fascinating.
Well, what's interesting is if you think about what is the teen brain, you know, in 7th grade, the higher density of oxytocin receptors in the amygdala causes kids to have this sense that everybody's watching them, the imaginary audience. They just become socially attuned, and they feel like every little nuance around them is something they pick up on, and they feel like, ooh, that person just judged me because they moved their lip a tiny bit. But if you think about what kind of friend you want to have in your grown-up life, you want someone who pays attention to your moods and is willing to negotiate and compromise with you. And so the same things that led to feeling more peer pressure in 7th grade led to ultimately, down the road, kids who are way more socially attuned, willing to negotiate and compromise in their romantic relationships, their friendships, with their parents. So you can say, oh, peer pressure is bad for you, but actually it's through the forces of peer pressure that kids, and peer comparison, that kids who care a lot about what other people think, they care what society thinks, they care what their parents think, they want to, you know, get good grades and go to good schools, and they generally, it was kids who didn't feel peer pressure back in 7th grade. What was distinct about them over time was actually a lower GPA, way lower. And they were just sort of like, you know, average students who didn't excel. And it was because they didn't care what anybody thought.